What's up, guys? It's Mike Lepowski, and I just wanted to talk about one of the misconceptions that people have when it comes to building muscle, and that is that people sometimes have this belief that what they did before to build muscle should work now. And unfortunately, we know that's absolutely wrong. I mean, it's been proven time and time again, and here's the reason why. It has to do with gas. I'm not talking about what you put in your tank. I'm talking about the general adaptation syndrome. Now, here is how it works. In a perfect world, we perform exercise, and that sends an alarm reaction to the body. And in order to resist that stress, the body then decides that, you know what, I'm going to adapt to this so that if I'm presented with this stress again at some other point in time, I can better deal with it. And the way that we hope to adapt is through muscle hypertrophy. We want to see an increase in muscular size and strength. Sometimes I just threw it in there that, we can see an increase in size, but not necessarily an increase in strength. A point that maybe we'll cover a little bit later. But this is what it would look like in a perfect world. We go into the gym, we train our butts off, and we push our bodies to fatigue to the point at which to say, you know what, I give up. If you're going to keep doing this to me, I got to put on some more muscle. So, one of the things that happens is in the early stages of training, when, within our first 1 to 2 years or so, this is pretty much what it looks like. I mean, we can do very little more than just simply show up at the gym. And, even if we're not exercising correctly, we see people make massive progression in the initial stages. But what happens after that first year or 2 years? And that's what I want to focus on right now, because unfortunately, those initial years set up a lot of people for failure in the years to follow. And that's because they keep following this idea that, you know what, if what I did before worked, then it should work now. But it doesn't. And the reason is because as we train longer and longer and longer, our bodies get more acclimated to what we're doing. Okay, the body becomes far more accustomed to the stress that we're placing on it, and that alarm reaction is no longer so alarming. But we continue to push our body, and finally we hit a point where maybe we exceed what our body is accustomed to. And that's great. I mean, maybe it's through an increase in volume, it's through an increase in intensity, or both, or frequency, whatever it is. We simply exceed what the body had gotten accustomed to, and that alarm reaction is so strong now that it will result in muscle hypertrophy. And that's great. But here's the thing. It doesn't always work out like this. And in fact, more often than not, it doesn't. Unfortunately, what we tend to see is more of a neuromuscular adaptation. Now, there's nothing wrong with neuromuscular adaptations. They're great, particularly if your focus is on building muscular strength or being able to demonstrate strength. And this is the scenario that we see a lot of people run into, in that because they're training so frequently and they're becoming so skilled at whatever exercises they perform, or maybe they're performing their workouts the same way or performing the same exercises week after week, the increase in strength is due to greater coordination of the body. So basically, intramuscular coordination, shifting of leverages and tension, and this allows us to lift more weight, but we're not necessarily placing a greater strain on the muscles to the extent at which an increase in size is necessary. And so we may see an increase in strength but not size, or we might see no increase in strength or an increase in size. Now, when we hit that phase of muscle hypertrophy, though, beyond a certain point, now the body again is going to look to make a neuromuscular adaptation. So you really can't escape this, this pattern here, where whether the body jumps right to making a neuromuscular adaptation to deal with the demands that you're placing on it, or you have an increase in muscular size. After that, the body is automatically going to try to start becoming more neuromuscularly adapted to the stress that's being placed on it. And the reason why is because building and maintaining muscle is metabolically demanding. our bodies, they naturally seek the most economical way to use its resources. Once again, we do, to put on muscle mass, as you know, requires a lot. It takes a lot of energy, it uses up a lot of resources. And, you know, our bodies were designed to adapt, but unfortunately, when it comes to muscle growth, this is going against what our bodies naturally want to do. So the more you perform the same workout and exercises the same way, the more proficient you become. So that's what we had just spoken about. And you're able to perform the same workload but using less energy. And we see the same thing taking place with our nutrition. We can recognize that we may drop our calories to a certain point, and initially we might notice an increase in fat loss, or rapid fat loss, but then suddenly it sloughs off, and once again we plateau. And what it is our body drops its metabolic demands to meet the calories that it's being presented with. So this is why variation in exercise selection, performance, and program design is so important if the goal is muscle hypertrophy. So we need to constantly be presenting our bodies with a new strain, something that's unique and something that it's unaccustomed to, in order to stimulate gains and make it recognize that, there's this new stress that I have to contend with, and the only way that I can do it is by increasing my size and strength. So that's it in a nutshell. Just a quick message that I wanted to pass along, because I'm seeing a lot of people frustrated right now at their lack of gains, and the truth of the matter is it's because they're afraid to break away from what they've been doing for so long, because they've become so comfortable with it. So this is why it's critically important to open your mind up to different methods of training and not being afraid to experiment and go down a different path, because unfortunately, for those who really take a lot of time to study the science of exercise and figure out the best way to go about implementing it, to be safe, to be effective, to be efficient, sometimes they miss the boat. And they miss the boat because, even though they found this way to do things more efficiently and to be really effective with the time that they're using, their bodies, again, have become so accustomed to that it's just no longer providing the stimulus that it needs to grow. And then you have guys who really have no clue what they're doing, and throw everything in the kitchen sink in, and they have greater overall development. And it's because the body, at the very least, had different stresses that it had to adapt to over time. So even though their training might not necessarily be considered ideal, it still can be quite effective. So that's it. I hope to talk to you guys soon. You can always find more information over at mikelepowski.com. And please, please do me a favor and just like and share this if you got some value from it. All right, take care.